and today I wanted to talk about Universal monsters again. So I just did my video where I ranked and talked about the plots of each of the Universal monster movies that came in that box set. Also in that box set, there was the original House of Horrors Universal and a Monster Legacy. I just wanted to read this for fun after I watched the film, and partway through it I was like, I have got to share this with people because these are just so fun. So a lot of the stuff in here was just like fun trivia, things that you may not know about the movies. I have made a giant list of all the good stuff to tell you about. I've separated it by movie so you guys can skip around if you only want to hear the facts about a specific film, but I'm just going to rapid fire tell you these fun facts that I learned about each of the movies. So first, let's start off with Frankenstein. So the role of Frankenstein's monster was originally intended for Bela Lugosi, who is Dracula, and the application of the makeup, where it covered everything except for his eyes and his mouth, actually made him pull out. And then the role, of course, went to Boris Karloff. Frankenstein was banned in several countries due to its gruesomeness. Boris Karloff, who was Frankenstein's monster, also played Ardith Bey, who is the mummy in The Mummy. Here's a fun little movie trivia. It says, the use of electricity to bring the monster back to life was not in Mary Shelley's novel, yet has been used in nearly every other film version since Universal's Frankenstein. Boris Karloff wasn't the only Frankenstein. In 1942's The Ghost of Frankenstein, it was played by Lon Chaney Jr. In 1943's Frankenstein Meets Wolfman, it was played by Bela Lugosi. In House of Frankenstein, 1944, House of Dracula, 1945, and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein in 1948. It was played by Glenn Strange. Boris Karloff's shoes weighed 13 pounds each. James Whale, who was the director of Frankenstein, he also directed plenty of other films in the Universal scene, got his start by acting in plays as a prisoner of war in a German camp in World War I. To help achieve that gaunt, sunken cheek look of Frankenstein's monster, Boris Karloff removed his partial bridge work. Boris Karloff was actually a gentleman who enjoyed reading poetry and gardening, and it wasn't until his breakout role in Frankenstein that he really devoted his life to horror and played in horror roles up until his death. Okay, so now let's move on to Dracula. Dracula was released on Valentine's Day in 1931. How romantic. The success of Dracula actually was an important part of Universal Pictures being able to continue running during the Great Depression. Bela Lugosi, who plays Dracula, got his part because he played the role of Dracula in the play Dracula on Broadway. That is why he got the role in the movie. And the play was actually what inspired the script for the movie Dracula, although the play is based on Bram Stoker's Dracula. This is interesting. While the production of Dracula was filmed mostly during the day, a Spanish version of the movie was filmed at night. A Spanish cast working on the same set filmed a Spanish language version of the script. So they would just alternate filming the same scenes in English and in Spanish in day and night. Lon Chaney was originally considered for the role of Dracula, but he died before production could take place. And when Bela Lugosi died, he was actually buried in one of his vampire capes as he requested. Next up, we have The Mummy. Boris Karloff's makeup for The Mummy as the actual mummy took about 8 hours to apply. Boris Karloff was rumored to have said to Pierce, the makeup artist, "Well, you've done a wonderful job, but you forgot to give me a fly." Karloff reportedly said that the whole procedure was the most trying ordeal I have ever endured. The Mummy actually had several working titles, including Cagliostro and Imhotep, which is the name of the mummy in the movie, before landing on the name The Mummy. And Jack Pierce, the man who was responsible for the iconic makeup of Frankenstein, actually believed that his best work was in the mummy Imhotep in the film The Mummy. Although the scenes of Karloff as the mummy are some of the most iconic in movie-making history, Karloff as the mummy only appears on the screen for a few minutes. Alright, now we are moving on to the Wolfman. It took 6 hours to apply Lon Chaney Jr.'s Wolfman makeup and 3 hours to take off. Screenwriter Kurt Siodmak created and often repeated the werewolf myth that a person becomes a werewolf through a bite, a werewolf can only be killed with a silver bullet, and that a man can change into a wolf during a full moon. So those were the writer's creation. Yak hair was actually used as the Wolfman's makeup and glued to Lon Chaney's face and body. The dissolving of the Wolfman when Larry goes from wolf to himself in the movie only took a few seconds, but in reality, the removal of the makeup took 10 hours to complete. Lon Chaney Jr. must have been a great actor because it was actually intended that he played both the monster and the werewolf in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman in the 1943 film, although that was later changed. And he also played Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, the Mummy, and Wolfman in his career. This one might be one of my favorites. It says, when Larry fights his wolf, it is actually Lon Chaney Jr.'s German Shepherds. All right, next up we have the Invisible Man. A double, taller with a more prominent nose, was often filmed instead of Claude Rains, who is the voice of the Invisible Man. All of Claude Rains' The Invisible Man dialogue was pre or post-recorded and dubbed in later. Claude Rains was actually quoted as calling it lovely to do horror acting. He said, "Here in the movies I can be as mean, as wicked as I want, and all without hurting anybody." Next up, we are off to The Bride of Frankenstein. So the bride's now famous hair was held in place with a wire horsehair cage. The Bride of Frankenstein's shock look was actually achieved by taping her eyes wide open. And during the filming of The Bride of Frankenstein, Boris Karloff injured his hip, which required him to use a stunt double, and Colin Clive broke his leg, which required him to be sitting down in most of the film. Next up, Phantom of the Opera. So the film's set of the Paris Opera House stage, located on Universal's Stage 28, has been used many times for various movies, and it is reportedly the oldest remaining film set in the world and rumored to be haunted. And also, some of the Phantom of the Opera's movie was shot on the same opera house set as the 1925 silent film Phantom of the Opera. And also, speaking of that 1925 silent film, that Phantom of the Opera that was played by Lon Chaney Sr. actually designed his own makeup, and he actually applied his own makeup in The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And so reportedly, some theaters were urged to have smelling salts on hand in case female members of the audience should faint in horror when watching him play Phantom of the Opera. Last up, we have Creature from the Black Lagoon. This one says, Rico Browning, who was the gill man for the underwater scenes, was required to hold his breath for upwards of 4 minutes at a time. This next one says the actors who played the part of the creature could hardly see out of the costume as the eyes were a fixed part of the rubber suit. And lastly, for Creature of the Black Lagoon, it said that Chapman, who was one of the people, so the creature had a lot of working parts and different people playing him. It said Chapman would sweat through 14-hour days trapped inside the airtight, molded sponge rubber costume during filming in Universal City, California. Meanwhile, Browning shot his underwater scenes with the film's second unit in Wakulla Springs, Florida. So there you have it. Those are the facts about all the Universal monster movies that I just thought were fantastic, and they came straight from Universal Pictures itself, so you know that these are all true facts, which is really cool. And before I go, I just wanted to give you just a little look at how cool this is. The box set for the movies comes with this booklet, and I just think that it's really awesome that you get to look through, read about the monsters, see a bunch of movie posters. I had a lot of fun watching all the Universal Monster films. I had a lot of fun reading about the Universal Monsters. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow with another horror video. Bye, guys!